jolly good.
Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clank Zoka. Welcome to another My Thoughts On. Today, I'm going to be talking about all three Cartoon Saloon films. If you don't know who Cartoon Saloon is, or what, or who they are and what the company is, so basically they are a Irish animation studio from Kilkenny, I think. And before they go into films, to my knowledge, I think they only worked on shows and obviously short films like From Darkness. They did, I think there's one called like Backwards Boy, where there's like a boy who was born with his head like back to front, so he can only see his back and not his front. That sort of stuff. And then they got to make feature films, which is Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, Breadwinners, which is probably the first film that's not Irish. It's still animated by them, but it's not actually about the Irish myths or folklore. And then Wolfwalkers, which is hence why I'm doing these three films. Wolfwalkers, although it was released in cinemas, theatres and film festivals, it's coming to Apple TV this... well, oh, it's actually out today. Yeah, so Wolfwalkers is now officially out today. I don't know why I had the sudden urge to forget that. Well, after seeing Wolfwalkers, I can't. And to answer your question, yes, I will watch it again because it's Wolfwalkers. It's all good. It's fine. So we're going to do this properly now. I'm going to talk about all three of their films, which is again Secret of Kells, which is 2009, Song of the Sea 2014, technically 15 in the UK, Breadwinner, which is the last film that they did before Wolfwalkers, that came out in 2017, technically 18 in the UK. So we're going to start off with The Secret of Kells, and also just to bring in a quick note, I have seen these films before, but I have not seen them in a very long time. So there's going to be a lot of things in the film where I will remember it or I won't. Okay, so what is The Secret of Kells about? Well, it's about this. Well, it's in Ireland. There is a city, or well, not a city, but a village behind these walls, and they are led, and also under the protection of Abbot Salage, or Brendan's uncle. He is also actually voiced by Brendan Gleeson, who would later appear, well not appear, but voice Ben's dad, Connor. I think his name was Connor in Song of the Sea. He is building a wall to protect his village from the Vikings, who are known to rule and destroy and kill whatever gets in their way. Except for Brendan, who's voiced by Ethan Maguire, I think. He's a young boy who you would expect a young boy to be, full of enthusiasm, happy, and just wants to go outside the walls of Kells. And after this mysterious newcomer named Brother Aidan and his cat, and yes, I for some reason forgot the cat's name. It had like some sort of like Latin name or something like that. Anyways, Brendan learns that there is a book of iron of Ona. I think it's called Ona, but obviously it's called the Book of Kells, and he must help Aidan complete this book. This is a book that holds a lot of secrets and a lot of good hope for the village and for everyone who lives within the village. And so, you must go outside the walls to help Aidan. And along the way, he comes across this very mysterious girl named Ashlyn, who's voiced by Christian Mooney, and then she seems to be some shape-shifting spirit of some sort. But 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 it's not enough time since the Vikings are getting closer and closer to destroying their town. And obviously, his uncle Abbott is trying to tell him, "No, you cannot go over the walls. You must stay within. Must stay within the walls, not out." At first, it does seem like a film that's going for the whole character wants to do more than stay within the boundaries. He leaves the boundaries. He finds this mysterious thing, whether it's a creature, a person, or anything like that. His relative, uncle, dad, or anything tries to protect the person, or no, mum, whatever. Someone who's like related to the main character says, "No, you cannot go out there." And it's not making said character the villain. They're just trying to protect the main character from certain doom, danger, and then they admit they're wrong in the end. Have we seen that before? How to Train Your Dragon, freaking Moana. This is a story that has been done to death, and most of the time it's done well because you can see the perspective and you can understand both sides of where these two characters come from. In this case, one character wants to prove to the other that there is something out there more than just Vikings. There is something that can resemble hope, and the other is denying it because he just. I mean, A, the one is disobeying the other, and B, the other is saying, "No, you cannot do that." One's just doing something good, even though it seems like the person seems evil, which is actually not true to my knowledge. Anyways, the most unique thing about the story here is actually how it's told, and this film is like slightly over an hour. It's an hour and 15 minutes, which is actually, by film running time standards, that's quite short. I think Ice Age was roughly about that running time, so it's actually not a very long film, which is a good thing. But also, the film doesn't really offer a lot. It offers something unique and interesting, but it's like they could have done more. If it was like maybe 20, maybe 25 minutes longer, I think this film could have pulled a real punch. But what do I like about the story? Well, I like the idea of the Book of Kells. I also like the environment that the characters live in. They live kind of like in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees and a forest, a mysterious forest, I might add. There are scenes that are quite light-hearted and funny, as you would expect with these kids to be full of enthusiasm. There's a scene where a character falls into mud and Brendan laughs. It's that kind of like light-hearted humour. It's nothing like clever like Pixar or a Disney. It's more like just tee-hee. And that's fine. I think the humour is very nice, but nothing hilarious. The dark dramatic scenes, as very little as there are, this studio is known to be quite dark. When it gets dramatic and when it gets rather emotional, it's done very well. You do kind of get invested in what's going on, and you kind of want to see how it ends. When I first saw this film, I legit didn't know how the film could end. I thought, this is going to be like your generic, like, Brendan comes across Ashley, and it's like, they're going to welcome her into Kells, and it's like, Brendan, to my knowledge, is the only character that actually sees her, and everyone else just doesn't, really. But it also, without giving too much away, I thought the ending of this film, although good, it just left a bit of a head scratcher on me. But then I thought, okay, so how do I put this? I don't really want to spoil anything, really, but it did something that I thought would just go into the same routine, but then it did something completely different, and I liked that. First time I was like, I didn't get it, but second time I'm like, okay, I do understand it now. There are scenes where Brendan helps brother Aidan, or just Aidan, helped complete the Book of Kells, and the scenes are visually imaginative, and I will get to that. I'll get to that in a minute. But there are so many scenes where he's helping him, just learning about the secrets of this book that he's been making. It's really interesting as well. So, is there a weakness to this? Well, I did say that sometimes. Well, the ending is the ending was the only thing. Well, when I first watched it, was a bit convoluted, but now I do kind of understand it, even though it might not be intentional or it might not be accurate. But I think it's perfectly understandable. Do I have any real issues? I will probably say that actually, I'll get onto that in a minute. But I will say that the Vikings, although rather intimidating, they're not really true villains. They're just basically an army of evil things just out there to destroy. And I get that villains only have one purpose, and others can be well fleshed out, like in later films, like Mocker, the that owl character in Song of the Sea, and then there's like that young guy in The Breadwinner, and especially Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector. But these are basically just killing machines that just do. Well, they actually do have a leader, but I think they're just referred to as Vikings. You know that one lead. You know that one Viking that has like a a, a horse, a horseshoe on like a gold horseshoe on his chest. I think that might be the leader of some sort. I could be wrong there, but although as intimidating as they are, they're not very well fleshed out villains. They're basically just what they are. I will say this: I think the concept of the Book of Kells and what they can do with the Irish folklore slash myth, and keep in mind I do not know that much about it. What they did, I think, is rather astonishing, and the more they use this power to create this story is really interesting. I think it's a cliche story, but it's told in a very unique and different way. There are lots of great scenes where the animation comes in. I will again get to that in a minute. Where they would use like different shots where you see a character, you know, you see a character walk that way. There's like three frames. You've got one character going that way, and then the second frame they're going up, and then the last frame they're going into a door or something. They use the power of storytelling with animation perfectly. Although it's not used a lot, I can tell they're doing something different. So, a good story that's told well executed, despite how cliched it is. The concept is intriguing and extraordinary. It's dark, especially when the Vikings do attack. It gets rather grim and rather violent, although not too violent. But it's like I give the film credit for actually being quite dark for a PG, and I think it's justified in my opinion. So, although the ending, understandably, it makes sense in a way, it's not fully realised, and it might be one of those films where you're gonna have to do the whole. You have to explain the meaning behind it, and again, just like Anomalisa and The Lighthouse and Ex Machina, just look up Secret of Kells Explained and you will find an answer. But overall, I think it's a very well told story. Animation. What can I say about the animation from this team? Now, this is the first animated film, well, first feature film from them. So they have used 2D animation before, like again with their shorts. Can I just say, it's really nice that studios like Cartoon Saloon can use 2D animation to their advantage. It's very rare nowadays for an animated film to be 2D. Sometimes they would use the technology in like flashback sequences like Kung Fu Panda or something like that, but not like fully. This is some of the best examples of 2D animation outside Disney, and I mean that. I think it has a very distinctive style to it. I think it's a very colourful, again, stylish, gorgeously animated film. There is so much to appreciate here. There's so much little details here and there that just gives it a nice, fresh, unique look to it. All the characters have this very cartoony, yet very calm and smooth design. Like, I love the look of Ashling, and I think Abbott is very tall and big, and even the characters, just by looking at them, you can kind of get a lot from their design. Like Brendan is a young boy who's quite he's quite energetic and smiling. The Abbot is very tall and very mighty, but doesn't take things seriously. And he doesn't. He takes things seriously, and he's very tall and not. He doesn't smile a lot. Ashlyn, who's like a very mysterious girl who moves around. She has wonderful movement, by the way, because she can shapeshift into I think just a wolf. I think that's it. But you can tell the characters just by who they are and what their personality is like, just from how they look. And that's not always the case, but in here I think it works really. The movement, again, just like Ashley, and I think they're all very, very cartoony, but it's nice looking cartoony animation. And also, I'm a sucker for forest films. Like any film that has a forest in it, you get well, as long as it's beautiful and it has a style, you will get even if the film is not good, you will get a thumbs up from me, because this forest just looks unbelievably ambitious and gorgeous. There's dark areas into it that reminds me of Pixar's Brave, especially when they go to that. Oh, I forgot to get that eyepiece that Aiden needed. That reminded me of Brave, and I wouldn't be surprised if Pixar got inspiration from Cartoon Saloon. I could be wrong, but never say never. Um, and the scenes where it involves the Vikings, and especially in the third act when they attack, they use the style to make you look a lot grimmer and red, and it emphasizes on how dark it quickly gets. There are scenes where you can tell it's very light-hearted and very beautiful, and then there are some that's quite dark and quite gritty. So they use the power of animation to tell a story. And again, just like the transition scenes where you see Brendan running left and he's running up and then he's going up some stairs. They don't follow him, they use these shots so we can see where he's going and from a different angle. And they also use different perspective shots here as well, which is quite unique. So besides storytelling, they use the power of animation to do so many extraordinary ideas, and they're very well presented here, and I think that's what really makes this film stand out. However, there is only one teensy wincy little nitpick. There is a scene in the film, and I get why they did that. So there is 3D in the film, but it's like barely noticeable. But when we see Brendan going into Aiden's hut, when he's opening the door, you can see, like, if you look at the door, if you see how it moves, it's got 2D outlines, but it's like you can tell it's 3D. Even in 2D animation, that would be like what, 1 or 2 frames per second or something like that. So there are times where they have to use like 3D computer animation, which is understandable, and it does not distract us from the real thing. It works. So despite not being the best looking Cartoon Saloon film, it's still a really gorgeous film. I mean, okay, all their films are gorgeous, but this, even for a first film, is very impressive. It's gorgeous, it's stylish, it's original, creative, lovely, and wonderfully dark as well. I love the dark elements here. So yeah, the animation is fantastic. Characters and acting. Um, so the only main characters we really focus on is Brendan, Ashlyn, Abbott, Aiden, and the cat. And the main character, Brendan, who's not the strongest character from Cartoon Saloon, he's very likeable and he's very passionate about helping Aiden with the Book of Kells, and I think he's also funny and cheery, and he's very determined as well. Abbott, again, who is Brendan's uncle, he's not the villain. At first you think he is, but he isn't, and he's a very understandable character. He can be quite strict and a bit cross with Brendan when he disobeys him as well, and their chemistry, although it's not very well publicised, it's a very understandable relationship, I suppose. It's an uncle just trying to build a wall that he's like, you're supposed to take this seriously, and I get that. And Brendan's just kind of like, just like, whatever. helping Aiden, and then he's unfocused with his job. And Aiden's a good supporting character too. He provides information about the book, and also, well, no, I provides the information about Kells, and he provides the information about Ina. I think that's, I can't remember where Aiden is from actually. And then my favourite character in the film, which is kind of a good thing but also disappointing, is Ashlyn. She's a really great character. She's a character that we do kind of understand when we first see her, and when we get to learn a little bit more about her as well. She's very well fleshed out. I think she's likable, cheery, cheeky, and kind of mysterious. You know, you don't really know too much about her, which is the upside and the downside of her. Because she is in the film for like what feels like 15, 20 minutes. I do kind of wish she was in the film longer. And what they do with her was understandable, although I do kind of wish they did more with her, especially near the end. Which at first, when I saw the film again, didn't understand. Second time, I do kind of understand it now. So, yeah, a great character, but could have been better if she was in the film for long. Um, you got the other, you got, excuse me, you got the other villagers in here as well. Who, I mean, you could say they're comic reliefs, even though they're just kind of there again to provide information for Brendan. Technically, they are comic reliefs, but they're not in the film for long, so they don't drag on scenes that have to be comedic or anything. And in terms of comedy, again, there isn't a lot, but it's like constant, but rather endearingly charming. The Vikings again are very generic villains, but they are very threatening in their presence, and even their designs are quite cool as well. The voice acting's pretty good. Um, Evan McGraw, I don't know, voices either young Brendan or older Brendan. I think it's one or the other. I think he's quite good in the film. Brendan Gleeson is very good as always. Mick Lally, who voices Aiden, is also really. Everyone does a really good job in the film. They all have. I mean, they provide their characters with nice vocal performances, and I think they play them quite well. And I've got to give the film credit for casting a young actor. They could have easily got a celebrity to play a boy who's like, I don't know, 11 or 12, and the actor's like 30. They could have done that, but they went with a young actor, roughly the same age. So that works. On a side note, I love the score of the film. It is by, I mean, I know who it is, but I'll try and pronounce his name. Bruno Collias. Coas or something. Coas. Bruno Coas. I think he did the score for Song of the Sea and Wolfwalkers. He's a brilliant composer. He did scores for Coraline, which is also another really good film. Obviously, I mean, if you actually seen Coraline, come on, yeah, I mean you should. Come on, it's a bloody masterpiece, man. It's pretty good. I forgot what else he did, but he is a really good composer. And the song Ashlyn's, there's like an Ashlyn song that Christine, what's her name? I haven't forgot her name, but Christine Moni sang, which is quite beautiful as well. Well, I like it a little more than first time. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a very good film, but not the best from Cartoon Saloon. Secret of Kells offers a lot of unique ideas and a lot of things to talk about, like the ideas of the Book of Kells, um, the you know the ideas that it presents. There's a lot that you want answered as well. It's got a good story that's cliched but done well. The animation is beyond impressive. It's incredible. The main characters, have good personalities and they're likable in their own route. The voice acting's good. It's dark, it's dramatic, emotional, it's funny, it's suspenseful. It's a really good start of a first film. It's not perfect. It can be a little convoluted to some who can't follow the story, and the ending, you could argue, makes sense or it doesn't. And the Vikings are not very memorable villains. In terms of like design, they're quite cool and they're very threatening, but that's it. So, what should I give Song of the Sea? Secret of Kells. We haven't got to that one yet. What did I give it last time? I gave it a 9.8 out of 10. I'm okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. 9.8 out of 10. 9.8. Not the best from Cartoon Saloon, but I still really like it. Slightly more, as a matter of fact. And so we jump from 2009 and we go up to Song of the Sea, which was released 5 years later. So here we go. Up next, Song of the Sea. Okay, so on to Song of the Sea, which is directed by Tom Moore, who actually was the founder, or probably co-founder, of Cartoon Saloon. He was also the director of Secret of Kells and then later Wolfwalkers. And with Song of the Sea, this is probably the film that actually got the company more and more attention. And it really, really shows. Hello, drink there. So, this is their second feature film that also got nominated for an Academy Award. And just like Secret of Kells, this was played at lots of film festivals. It got big praise by critics. I think it's got like 99% on Rotten Tomatoes last I checked. It's been a while since I've used that website, but I do know it's very, very well received. So it's been a while since I've watched that one as well. And before Wolfwalkers, Song of the Sea was actually my favourite film from the company. And so, since I've just watched it just recently, obviously to tie in with the release of Wolfwalkers, what do I think of it? Well, let's have a look at the story, shall we? So the story is about this young boy, this Irish boy named Ben, who's voiced by David Rowley, and his sister Saoirse. It's about these two going on this journey, even after their mother, who is voiced by... Hang on, just trying to look for it. Give me 1 second. Oh, here we go. Lisa Hannigan, named... I'm going to try and pronounce her name correctly. Brona, I think. So after Brona gave birth to Saoirse, Ben, in typical sibling fashion, doesn't get along with her for some reason. Even though in the beginning, and that's not really a spoiler, in the beginning he seems rather happy to have a sibling in a way. However, Connor, voiced once again by Brendan Gleeson, who was Abbott, or Brendan's uncle from Secret of Kells, he's in this as Connor, who is Ben's and Saoirse's dad. He seems to be really, really struggling and just very down after losing his wife. And so the granny, who's voiced by... I'm going to try and pronounce her first name, Fiona... I think Fiona Flanagan. She takes both Saoirse and Ben away, since after finding out that Saoirse is actually a silkie, which is basically when she can turn into a seal by wearing this coat, and she can use her voice to sing the Song of the Sea, which can help her, keep her well and keep her voice beautiful. So Granny takes them both into the city where it's safe, but knowing Ben, he wants to go home because Koo, the big dog, is at home and he just wants to get back. However, they go on this big journey to actually save Saoirse, because after she gets a rather nasty cold, obviously, because she went into the sea, Ben has to try and take her home before it's too late, because without the coat and the shell and without her voice, she won't be able to live. and they have to try and avoid all obstacles along the way, along with this this owl character named Machina, who has emotions in jars. So they have to avoid her and try and confront her and convince her to help them before it's too late. Now, knowing Cartoon Saloon is an Irish animation company, you know a lot of their films, except for Breadwinner, are based on Irish folklore and myths. So the first one was about the Book of, Secret of Kells was about the Book of Olna, or the Book of Kells. Here, it's more like based on the folklore of Silkies, or the Song of the Sea, or seals. So that's very interesting. Now, all the issues in Secret of Kells, even though there wasn't many, whatever problems I had with that are all fixed in this film. It tells a rather endearing and engaging story about siblings getting along and trying to get home and look out for one another, really, I suppose. The film opens up, and I won't give too much away. Excuse me. I know I said that obviously it opens up with Ben, a very young Ben who's really excited to see, her sister because the mum's pregnant. The film opens up quite strong, and then it cuts to a few years later when Ben has grown up and Saoirse was already born. And I do have one nitpick though. Everything else about the film is perfect, and I will get to that in a minute. But why is Ben so unlikable to Saoirse? I mean, granted, he is a kid. I know kids do act like this to their siblings, and trust me, I should know because I have a brother, but he's also quite autistic. I mean, yeah, later in the film he does soften up and he does actually start to look out for his sister more, which is very nice. It does lead to some genuinely tragically heartbreaking moments. Like, yeah. But throughout the first part of the film was it was a little hard to get into because he does get a little bit annoying and whiny, but it doesn't damage the film. On one side, it's like, yeah, he is very unlikable, and he is a bit mean to his sister, who you do feel very sorry for throughout this entire experience. But on the other hand, it's like, he's only just a kid. Yeah, he should know better, but what else did you expect? And he does learn to actually soften up and actually, look out for his sister more. But if he's been living with her ever since their mum died, he hasn't. So he probably hasn't been that nice to her at all, which is very strange. But it's understandable. The things that do work in the film is the heart, is the emotion, and is the uniqueness of the concept. And the concept is very interesting. And they use it to their advantages. Like, there is literally a scene where Saoirse finds the silky coat, which turns her into a seal, and that's one of my favourite scenes in the film. It's beautiful, it illustrates the animation. It's just really gorgeous, and the journey of the film feels just very relaxing, and it feels like you're a kid. It feels like the film does kind of reflect on childhood memories, because it feels like, you see Ben and he's got his little cape on and he's always adventurous, and he's got Koo, which is his dog, always with him. It feels like a film that can reflect on people who has experienced something like this as well. So it is genuinely very enthralling and just very nice to watch, because it is a very nice journey. They go to different areas where they meet some other legends as well. I'm going to try and remember their names. So they come across these three characters, and I forgot to mention. So remember when I said Machina has a jar full of emotions? Well, the emotions that she steals from the people who had them, they get turned into stone. Anyone really, Saoirse, Ben, anyone. So they have to, try and get them back. So There are other characters in the film also. There's Lug, there's Mossy, there's Spud as well. They come across this other guy with a big beard, and then Machina. All these three mysterious characters, they all have personality. But granted, they are just characters that provide an explanation. But however, they're actually funny. They don't actually drag the scenes on for that long, but they're also very charming, and the scenes are very well handled when it comes to, again, the emotional scenes, which I think is what makes this film give it the real punch. There is humour, but the humour is, again, kind of like the last film, is very like playful, very cheery, mostly anyways. But when it gets emotional, the film works, because you do care about the journey and you want to see how it ends. And unlike Secret of Kells, this film made me freaking tear down. I cried like 4 times, because, I mean, yeah, I knew what was going to happen, but at times I was like, it's been a while since I've watched it, and it's so good to see the film again. It also makes me wish the magical experiences with animated films, and need I remind you, I didn't see the film when it came out. I wish I did, though, because this would have been such an amazing experience to watch at the cinema. But on DVD, it's very good. But I just wish I watched it at the cinema and I didn't, because I won't give anything away. But when it got to the third act, the film just goes. It just goes for it. It gets more and more engaging, and you get even more attached to it. It gets touching, especially when you really find out what happens to the mother as well, and what happens with Saoirse. I was really invested in what was going on, and that's what Cartoon Saloon is very good at. They can suck you into a story, even if it's something. I mean, the concept is really what makes the story more unique and slightly different. But this kind of story where the siblings don't get along, but then they do, is something we've seen before. But in this case, it works because the characters are believable and likable enough, but you do care about them and their journey. And the mystical and like magical elements really work as well, and you're more and more interested in the myths. So I don't have anything to complain, except the first part does get a little bit hard to get into for some people, because Ben, it can be a little bit mean spirited, but again, as the film would go on, he would learn to actually grow a heart and all that. But it's very understandable, and obviously Connor, who is a good character too, but he is more stern and stubborn and very stressed, and he's angry and he's shouty, but excuse me, but it's understandable because he just lost his wife and he's still trying to cope with grief. So there's something that you can relate to in this. Oh, excuse me. There is something for you to relate to, like you can relate to what Connor's going through, and even to what the kids are like as well. So the story and the writing and the directing all feels it feels justified, it feels genuine. This is such a well told and very deep story. It has just the right amount of heart, it has good humour, even though it's not laugh out loud funny, but it's very, very charming. The journey is engaging, it gets magical. It's probably the least, out of all their films, this is probably the most family friendly one, although I wouldn't say it's a PG material. I'd say U is more justified, but it's still a good story that's engaging, well executed, and the mystical elements and the concept and the touching scenes when it gets really, really sad is really what keeps the film. It's what keeps it going, and it's what keeps you more and more interested in what's going on. And so the story actually works to its many advantages. So kind of like going out to sea, it feels jolly good, and it feels adventurous and fun, but also be mysterious and just overall magical. Animation. Okay, you know what I'm going to say. The animation is gorgeous. I mean, it is, but oh my god, where do I begin? Okay, so with Secret of Kells, it's a film that, animation-wise, it is, for a first feature film, it's very good, but that film looks more like one of their short films, but longer, and it has a slightly bigger budget. But Song of the Sea is probably one of the best examples of how to do 2D animation and use something different. It doesn't go for the same style like their other films, although at times you can tell it's similar as well. But what they do with it, especially since I'm a person who loves sea life, I love aqua life. I think it's gorgeous. You know, the Finding Nemo and Finding Dory are perfect examples of how to do that really well, and this film is no exception. I'm just going to go out and say it, this is one of the best looking 2D animated films I've seen ever. And yes, even more so than Disney, and I love the look of the old classic 2D Disney films like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, but there's something about Song of the Sea that just makes me appreciate the art form more as well. The characters all have very distinctive and very cartoony looks, but it's very smooth. It's quite soft as well. Saoirse, especially when she turns into a seal, it's very cute. There's lots of cute elements and just really fantastic stuff to appreciate. The lighting, the colours, it all leaps off the screen, and it gives you something very vibrant and just unique and stylish. And that's what Cartoon Saloon really does well. It really just does excel at bringing you something visually pleasing as well. This is a world I'd love to go to, in the world of Song of the Sea, because it's so beautiful, and they capture the very mundane look of this like very small Irish town. You've got an Irish village, you've got a lighthouse, you've got the sea, and then you've got Mucker's hut as well. It just really captures a very spiritual and very fun animated adventure. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, it's just so beautiful. I don't really have any complaints at all. Well, no complaints actually, I should say, but what else can I say? It's a gorgeous film with a lot to appreciate, and it's just one of the best examples of how you can do 2D animation and make the use of it in a very effective and very gorgeous way. Characters and acting. The characters in the film, I think, are all highly memorable. I think they're likeable, and they are in a way tragic. Ben, the main character, like I said before, he is kind of the main character who does get a little bit nasty and mean, but again, he does soften up towards the third act, second act actually, and yeah, he does get a little bit annoying at first, but he is actually a really likeable brother character. He's adventurous and he knows when to look out for others, and he's determined to save his sister, and I really liked him. I thought he was a really endearing character. Saoirse is probably my favourite character here. She's sweet and lovely, and she's extremely cute. I absolutely love the character of Saoirse, because she doesn't actually speak at all, which gives her more personalities from her expressions, and even from her singing too. And because in the film she gets really ill, and she gets like a cough just from being out in the sea, and when it comes down to actually saving her, again, I cried during this film, and And when it got down to getting even, when it got even more heartbreaking, especially with Saoirse and what happens to the mother, the story just gets even more gripping, and the character becomes more and more tragic and very understandable. I feel sorry for her, not just because Ben abuses her, but she was born with no voice, and she is a really tragic but very well-defined character. Connor is also a good father, although he can be quite strict and a bit hard on Ben, but he's only just looking out for them as well. And that's the thing about the characters, or at least the fathers in these films, like Abbott, Connor, and Bill Goodfellow. They're not villains. They do act rather strict, and they do get a rather mean personality to the main characters, but they're only looking out for them. They're only protecting them for their well-being. And Connor, although he is rather down and gloomy because he's lost his wife, and is actually his one anniversary since he was either he was with her or when they lost her. So from his perspective, it's very understandable as to why he's trying to, stay happy as much as possible. And his chemistry with his children, and especially his mother, the grandma, is pretty cute and quite enjoyable, even though there isn't much of it. Q's a very good supporting character. He's a very lovely animal supporting character, and also because he's a dog. If there's a dog in your film, you instantly get a big thumbs up from me. Unless the dog dies, and don't worry, he doesn't die here. You've got the you've also got the grandmother, who's just the strict authority figure, who's just doing what's best for the children. And again, she's not really a villain either at all. She's just looking out for them. Got Fairy Dan, who's basically another relative. I believe a relative of Ben and Connor and Saoirse. I'm not sure. I could be wrong there. I'm going to forget the names in a minute. So you've got Machina, who's the main villain, kind of, but when you really think about it, not really. I mean, granted, what she does is very. I mean, I will admit, the things that she does do, honestly, they are a little bit sinister, and they are kind of not nice at all. But again, just like most of the characters, she is a rather tragic character, and I did feel sorry for her because she lost. Well, I mean, his son turned to stone. I think his name was Maclure. I think something like that. And you got other characters as well. You got the big. Oh, I forgot his name. It starts with an S. You know, the guy with the long beard. He's also a good supporting character. And you got these other three ancient characters too. You've got Lug, Mossy, and Spud. I think that actually all of them, the characters, are highly memorable. But a lot of them have a tragedy. Well, most of them have a tragedy side to them, especially the mother, who's a very key character in this film, and she's not in it for long. But what they do with her is rather sad, really, when you think about it, and it is heartbreaking. And the voice acting is all absolutely terrific. Brendan Gleeson does a really good job here, and I think he's absolutely fantastic. David Rowley as Ben. He's a really good actor. He's a really good kid actor as well. I think he does a good job. Lisa Manigan as Brona. I think her voice is quite soft and lovely. Lucy O'Connell as Saoirse. I think her singing is quite good. She also has a really beautiful voice. Who else? You got Pat Short. You got John Kenny. Paul Young, Will Collins, all these other actors do an amazing job of voicing the well-respected characters. Most of the characters are all very wonderful. The main characters, most of them are quite tragic. Some of them are good supporting characters. They're funny, they're charming, they're memorable, they're well developed with most of them, and there's just something so interesting and unforgettable about these characters that really makes them stand out. The voice acting is definitely something that just really works to the film's big advantage, and it gives all the characters a great sense of enjoyment and something to even relate to when you kind of think about it. The score, so yeah, the characters are all great, and the voice acting's really what makes them better. And the score by Bruno, I can't pronounce his second name. I'll try and do that. Bruno Collet, I think that's how you pronounce it. It says Colas, but it's like Collet. He did the score for Coraline, he did the score for also Secret of Kells, and this is by far, Wolfwalkers is the best music score that he's done, but I'll say this is like second best. It's a really gorgeous and just very nice to listen to score. It has style, it has personality, it has that Irish feel to it with the flutes and the violins, not to mention the lullabies and the actual Song of the Sea. Here I sing the actual songs of the film, which is just called Song of the Sea, is really, really lovely and gorgeous. It's quite a nice lullaby sound to it. So the music is genuinely just phenomenal. While it was my favourite Cartoon Saloon film, Wolfwalkers is still better, but this is definitely second best. And I absolutely love this film. This was one of the best films of the last decade. And why this didn't win the Oscars beyond me. And out of all the films that came out in 2014, even though it came out in the UK of 2015, yeah, it should have won over Big Hero 6. If Lego Movie was nominated, that's quite hard. And then you've got How Much When You Drag It, which is kind of harder, you know? But it's a fantastic film nonetheless. Song of the Sea is one of the best examples of how to do a film and give it justice. It has a unique concept with folklore. The animation is very revolutionary and gorgeous. The characters are all tragic but lovable. The voice acting is terrific. The music is amazing. The story is executed fantastically. It's heartbreaking, tragic, and it's legit interesting. I love this film. And this was like the first film that like introduced me to Cartoon Saloon, and it's what really got me to watch Secret of Kells as well. And yeah, Ben can be a little bit annoying and a bit mean, but it doesn't take away the experience of this film. This was just a magical experience, and I loved it. And rewatching it again, it really made me love it and appreciate it even more. If you haven't seen this film, just please go and watch it. It's hard to get a copy of it. I got it on DVD, by the way. I got all of them on DVD except for obviously Wolfwalkers, but do try and give it a watch when you can. I recommend online somewhere, but it is fantastic. Really, really fantastic. A solid 10 out of 10 from me. It's my second favourite Cartoon Saloon film, and it's just wonderful, just magical. That's all I can say, really. Just a really beautifully magical film. And now on to the last, well, not exactly last film, but last film on this My Thoughts on. And this is the last Cartoon Saloon film that I'm going to talk about until their next film. So we've done Secret of Kells, we've done Song of the Sea, and now on to the 2017 film which came out 3 or 4 years after Song of the Sea, and that is Breadwinner, or The Breadwinner. And I'm not referring to that shitty Nickelodeon cartoon. No. I'm going to be talking about The Breadwinner next. So here we go. Alright, so now we're up to the last Cartoon Saloon film until Wolfwalkers called The Breadwinner. And this is based on a novel, a best-selling novel, I might add, and this is actually the first film from the company from Cartoon Saloon that isn't based on any Irish myths, which is quite interesting. This film is directed by Nora Twomey, who co-directed Secret of Kells, and this got nominated at the Oscars for Best Animated Feature, just like um, Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea. But is it any better than the other two? Well, unlike the other two films, I'm not going to talk that much about it because there isn't a lot to say. But what I can say about it is very good. I do recommend you all go and see it. But what's it about? Well, it's about this girl in Afghanistan, and her name is Pravana, and her father, or Bala, I think Bala, yeah. She gets taken. He gets taken after finding out that he's the enemy of Islam, and now Pravana has to go out there to find him. However, no, in Afghanistan, people treat women like crap, and now she has to disguise herself as a boy by simply cutting her hair and putting on different clothes. Along the way, she also comes across this other person who has done the same, and apparently she knows Pravana, and her name is Shazia. Along the way, she has to provide food and water while their father is gone, and tell his younger brother Zaki a story about the man facing this elephant king. Now, I don't know anything about Afghanistan folklore or anything like that, and I have not read the novel at all. This film is kind of what introduced me to the novel. I've now heard of it because of this, but I've never read it. And this is a very rare occasion for an animated film, at least from the UK. I'm not sure if the US has the same rating. This is actually a 12A, and I wouldn't go as far. Excuse me. I wouldn't go as far to say that it's hard 15. I think 12A is suitable. Because trust me, this is not like any other animated film out there. And the only other animated films I can think of that are also 12A are Mary and Max and Shane Acres 9, which both came out in 2009. And yeah, that's it. So this is going to be one of those animated films where you might need to put the kids away or make them watch um, something else, because this is actually one of the most real, very gripping films, at least animated films I've seen. It doesn't pull any punches. This film is just so. It's quite a tragic film with a really tragic story, really. And the more the film goes on, you just kind of want to see where it goes, and it gets you right into the feels, and it handles its tone, and it's actually rather mature. There's no there's no fart humor, there's no poop jokes. This is a film that just goes straight into the story, and while the humor at times can be very funny, it's actually very charming. Cartoon Saloon's humor is very soft and it's quite quiet, and it doesn't rely on clever or big pop culture references. It just relies on very simple but heartfelt humor. And when it gets really, really tragic and really dark fast, it works to its advantage. Really, you get easily scared by the characters in this film, by how they treat women and how they tell them to go home unless they've got a husband with them or anyone like that. It's really, really sad. And when you think about the reality of this story and what's happening in Afghanistan. It's really sad. The animation for the film is just like anything that Cartoon Saloon has done. It's absolutely gorgeous. Well, when I say gorgeous, I don't mean like it's a pretty film. It's pretty, but maybe not in the sense of colour. Animated films nowadays, we're all used to like big colours and eye candy brightness. This one, although nice looking, it is rather grey and dirty to represent how Afghanistan is a rather um, how this little city in Afghanistan is rather it's not as pretty as you would think. It does capture the look of how an Afghanistan city, or in this case, I guess, a village would look, and it really captures the dread and the sorrow of how it feels and how it looks. The character animation designs. I don't know if it's just me, but some of them, especially with Azaki, he looks a bit like Ben from Song of the Sea, but except with different skin color and different hair color. The animation is rather down to earth and quite gorgeous. I think the characters have very big and nice expressions. Their movements are very smooth. There are scenes where Pravana tells the story about this boy, and it cuts to 2D animation just like this film, but it cuts to 2D animation that actually has like a different style, and it's kind of like cutouts. And I think behind the scenes, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they actually did use like paper material to bring this character to life. And the animation in that segment is fantastic, but genuinely, they really nailed down the look of Afghanistan and just how real and how slow the movements are. And the characters move in such a human way that's not in any way cartoony. It's quite unbelievable. I'll be very, very honest. I mean, and all the characters, the main characters, especially Pravana, she's a very strong, independent female character, and the rest are either supportive characters who are just looking out for her, or others just want to treat her around like a slave. And I think there are lots of characters that I really, really hate, but more like in the sense of that you hate them for the right reasons, I guess, in a way. And then there's this one character who constantly, I think his name is Idris? Yeah, Idris. He's a character in the film that you could say is the main villain, even though I wouldn't say there's no villain, because all the other characters kind of, they're only doing what they can, and they just kind of treat each other like, like slaves, and like they're just treating them badly, But he is the closest thing to an actual villain in this film, because he's threatening. He knows Pravana's dad, and he at one point does hunt her and Shusia down. So the characters are really human in how they are portrayed, and I think they're all, and the voice acting is actually quite strong and quite beautiful. I think the characters are very well handled, and I think they're very well portrayed. However, if there's one little nitpick I have with the film, and honestly, it's not much. The ending has two problems. Although I think it's kind of satisfying, it doesn't feel completed. I mean, yeah, it's happy, but we don't know what happens next. And B, it does feel rather rushed. You kind of want to know more of what happened, and if they make a sequel, which I highly doubt they will, I would love to know what happens next. But I guess it's good enough as it is, because it can lead us to we can say our own interpretations of what happens next. On a side note, the score by Michael Donner and Jeff Donner, who did the score for Pixar films like The Good Dinosaur, Onward, and they did The Addams Family. Really good composers. They composed the score here, and their score is really beautiful. It really captures the feel of Afghanistan, and it really, really works to its advantage. Oh, and Shusia, who is this friend of Pravana, she's also a good supporting character too, and she tells Pravana, oh, and by the way, in the film they have to use made up names in order to not be caught, you know. And their chemistry as friends is believable enough, and she tells Pravana what she wants and what her goals are. So they're both very well compelling characters, and I think all the characters are very human, and I think they're very well portrayed. However, even though I do really like the film, I will probably say this is the weakest of Cartoon Saloon's film. It's not a bad film. In fact, far from it. I think this is a powerful, emotional, just tragic animated film that's so beautiful and yet captures the realism well. The characters are human and they feel like actual people. The story is interesting and you want to see what happens. The music is beautiful, especially with the ending song, "The Crown Sleeps." It's very gorgeous, it doesn't feel like an animated film for kids. It feels like an animated film for people who just want to see a film with a story. Despite the ending being quite rushed and a bit unanswered, it still feels very satisfying, and it's probably the most mature thing from Cartoon Saloon and probably the most violent one. I'll give the film a 9.7. I don't know if that's what I gave it last time. Let me just have a look. I'm pretty sure I did. Let me have a look. Yeah, 9.7. It's not perfect, but it's a truly fantastic film. So there we go. Cartoon Saloon films. And if you haven't seen any of their works, I do recommend you watch them. Except for their feature films, like I said, they did short films. They also worked on a couple of TV shows as well. A lot of their short films are on YouTube, Vimeo, you name it. I think they're a very talented animation studio. They are incredibly underrated compared to like the likes of Pixar and DreamWorks and Illumination as well. So, and they're still using 2D animation, and they're still using it to this day. They're trying to keep the medium alive. So please, 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 go watch their films. And I don't mean like online. I mean go buy their DVDs and all that. Go and support them. I think they really deserve. They deserve attention. And I know not all. I mean, there are lots of animated films and studios that are amazing, but they don't get the attention they need. And that's not always the case. But in this case, it's like they do because they're really talented and they know how to make a film. Illumination. Look, I like Illumination and all, but they're clearly a studio making kiddie films, and I like most of their films, but Cartoon Saloon, even with 4 films, and fifth if you count My Father's Dragon, which is coming out soon, I think, their films are a lot more mature, magical, endearing, original, heartwarming, and just beautiful. So please, do watch Secret of Kells, watch Song of the Sea, and watch Breadwinners, and especially Wolfwalkers, which is out today. So if you've got Apple TV, just go ahead and watch it. Or go to a local theatre or cinema and watch it then. So yeah, so out of all the Cartoon Saloon films, Wolfwalkers obviously being my favourite, Song of the Sea second, Secret of Kells third, and Breadwinners being the weakest, but still a really amazing film. What am I going to do next? Well, I've still got some films to catch up on from 2020. Look out for that. I've got a couple of Christmas films to watch, like Elf, The Miracle Maker. I was going to do Scrooge, but I realised I don't think it's that good. So Elf, the one by Jon Favreau with Will Ferrell. The Miracle Maker by Icon Productions with Ray Fiennes and Richard E. Grant. And then I'll probably do Love Actually, because that's a film that I've heard of, but I've never seen. And yeah, I've got more stuff coming out, so look out for that. And what do you think of Cartoon Saloon? What do you think of their films? Do you think they're talented? Do you think their films deserve more attention? Do you think they need more support? What do you think? What do you think of their films? Do you think they're good, bad, decent? Do you want to see them? Let me know below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. And until next time, hear the who's I wish I could remember how the song goes. That's not even in English, but hey, it was worth a try. Bye for now.